Hey guys, here's a video about what we're going to be doing in week 3 of this term, and I'm just going to go through in this video the concepts that we're going to cover, and then I'll make some videos with some examples. So we're at the stage of our study of algebra where we are starting to bring in all our prior knowledge and roll it sort of into like a big ball, so to speak. So the chapter that we're really looking at is 10F, back in our Cambridge textbook, and it's called equations with brackets. Okay, so when we're dealing with equations with brackets, which I'm pretty sure we've done some examples of this in class, we're talking about ones that are a little bit longer perhaps than the equations we've done in class. And there's a couple of steps to these, okay? So I'll just go down to the steps first and then explain this information above. So here I've got my steps with solving equations with brackets. So number 1 is to expand the brackets using the distributive law, which we did at the end of term 3. The second one is simplify the side of the equation by gathering like terms. That's usually possible. Sometimes they're already gathered together for you, so that's a maybe, but you always check. And number 3 is to solve the equation by backtracking with inverse operations. Okay, so I've highlighted the key terms here that are very specific. So when we say expand brackets, that means we're going to eventually not have brackets in our questions after we've done that step. We're using the distributive law to do that, which I'll do a little recap on in a second. After that, we are gathering like terms, so all of the pronumerals that are exactly the same as each other, we gather together by plussing or minusing them together, or sometimes timesing and dividing. And lastly, our backtracking with inverse operations. So remember, that's when we have plus and minus being the inverse or the opposite of each other, and times and divide. And the way that we've taught you to do that is either using a flowchart, but more recently we've talked about taking parts of the equation from one side of the equal sign over to the other with the goal of getting the pronumeral by itself. Okay, so there's heaps of information in what I've just talked about. Let's talk about the distributive law first, and that's going to be our first step. So here's an example of the distributive law. So this is when you have a number and or a pronumeral out the front of brackets, and then some things inside brackets, okay? And what we do is times everything inside the brackets by the number that is out the front, or the pronumeral that's out the front. Let's call it a term, the term. Okay, so I would times my A, in this case, by my B, and that, when we write that algebraically, that would be AB next to each other, signifying that it's A times B, plus, because there's a plus in this question, A times C, represented by AC. And just over here, I've just got a reminder of that. Remember, pronumeral and a number together, squashed next to each other, that represents multiplication. We know that. This is the same distributive law. The only difference here is that there's a minus in between. So we still times A times B minus A times C. Okay? What I might do now is just go through what I mean by like terms. Okay? And then I'll do some more examples of both. So, like terms, I'll just write it underneath here. So when I say like terms, sorry, just had a teacher come into my room where I'm recording. Okay, so like terms are exactly the same pronumerals, they can be combined. So I've just done a couple of, an example here. So if I've got a 3x plus a 5x, altogether 8x. If I've got a 7a minus 2a, okay, 5a. It's always important to check like the operations Don't think just because I say gather like terms together that always means plus. Okay, so it just means to sort them out, I guess, and make them into groupings might be a good way to put it. Another quick example, just do a slightly longer one. So a plus y minus, let's go plus, sorry, 13a minus y plus 7 plus 2. Okay, so as an example, I've got an a here and a 13a here. And I always advocate, or I always say, if you have a really big long one, circle them and deal with them like in sections. So a and 13a, that would be 14a because it's a plus here. 2y minus a y, so that would equal plus 1y. 2 minus y gives me 1y left, positive y. Okay, so I just write y, I don't need to write the 1. And then I've got a plus 7 plus 2, so plus 9, and that's as simple as I can get it. One last thing, these are not like terms. They're not exactly the same. This is an x squared and this is an x, so they can't be combined together, okay? Unless they were timesing together. All right, I'll stop this video now and then I'm going to do a separate one with some examples of distributive law and like terms for you to practice with.